Hello there, and welcome back to the final couplet with me, Theo Cowan. What a fantastic last couple of episodes we had, joined by Jacob. I had a great time, and I hope you did too. He was pretty good at Shakespeare, wasn't he? He knew what he was talking about, which is part of the reason why I got him on. And we had a good old laugh about poor Shakespeare's horse. Maybe we shouldn't have been laughing so much, because actually the horse was in a lot of pain and agony throughout both of the sonnets. So if you're listening, horse, Benvolio, I think we named you, I'm really sorry for laughing, and actually it's quite a sombre moment, and thinking of you. So there we go. Now this week I'm alone again, back in the studio, and we are looking at Sonnet 52, of course, because that comes after 51 in the way that numbers are ordered usually. So I think we should just dive in and have a listen, shall we? So am I as the rich whose blessed key can bring up to his sweet uplocked treasure, the which he will not every hour survey, for blunting the fine point of seldom pleasure. Therefore are feasts so solemn and so rare, since seldom coming in the long year set, like stones of worth they thinly placed are, or captain jewels in the carcanet. So is the time that keeps you as my chest, or as the wardrobe which the robe doth hide, to make some special instant special-blest by new unfolding his imprisoned pride. Blessed are you whose worthiness gives scope, being had, to triumph, being lacked, to hope. Well, there it is, Sonnet 52. And you'll be pleased to hear that there was no mention of horses in this one. So he's obviously either given up on that horse or decided that he doesn't need to write about horses for the moment, which is totally fair enough, because probably 2 sonnets about horses is about enough. There does, however, still seem to be a distance between Shakespeare and the recipient of the poem, his lover. It doesn't seem like he's with him. I think that will become clear as we break down the meaning of this one. But I think the overarching message of this one is quite nice, talking about how special his lover is and how actually he needs to savour the time with his lover, I think is sort of one of the themes. So let's dive into this one line by line and try and work out what the hell Shakespeare was going on about in Sonnet 52. So am I as the rich whose blessed key can bring him to his sweet uplocked treasure. So I think this basically means I'm like a really rich bloke who, and by the way, I realise that bloke is a very English thing, but when I say bloke, I mean man. I probably should have said that before, because I've done 50 sonnets and I've probably said bloke 50 times, so apologies. But now you know, if you didn't before, bloke is another term for man. So he's saying, I'm just a rich bloke who has the key to loads of amazing locked up treasure. Then he continues with, the which he will not every hour survey, for blunting the fine point of seldom pleasure. So he's got all this treasure, this guy, and Shakespeare's saying he's like this guy. He's got a load of treasure in the chest, but he's not going and checking out the treasure every hour, because that would make the pleasure less, right? That would spoil it. If you're going every hour to have a look at your lovely treasure, your jewels and everything, then it sort of becomes less special, is what he's saying. And I would have to agree. It would be hard though, wouldn't it, if you had loads of treasure and loads of jewels and stuff in a chest. You would want to look at it a lot, especially in the first couple of weeks. And maybe that's what he's getting at here. You know, early on in the relationship, it's that honeymoon phase, isn't it? You're in love and you're seeing your lover all the time. But maybe over time that gets a bit less special. Therefore are feasts so solemn and so rare, since seldom coming in the long year set. So he's using an analogy here, which is similar to the chest. He's saying, it's like feasts. I think he's talking about holiday feasts. So, feasts in Easter, feasts around Christmas. They're rare. But if you had a feast every day, it wouldn't be very special, would it? Like stones of worth, they thinly placed are, or captain jewels in the carcanet. Now, I think carcanet is a necklace type thing, and I think I'm pronouncing it right, carcanet. Please tell me if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, because that would be bloody embarrassing, and I'd have to go back and re-record this whole podcast. But in these next few lines, he's continuing the same theme, as he is wont to do in his sonnets. So he's set up the theme, and then he's bringing in loads of examples of the theme. So here he's saying it's like really valuable jewels that are placed sparingly, sparsely, in either a necklace or a crown to make them special. It's not like you've got the really valuable stones all the way round. I mean, maybe you do. Maybe you're the Queen or King of England, and if so, good for you, lucky you. But not everyone has that, so they have to place those nice, expensive jewels carefully and sparsely, which makes them all the more special, doesn't it? So is the time that keeps you as my chest, or as the wardrobe which the robe doth hide. So now he's bringing in the recipient of the poem, his lover, his friend, whichever you may want to call him. And he's saying the time when we're apart is like this chest that I'm talking about with all the treasure and stuff in it. So it's super precious. And then, of course, he jumps into another example, as if we haven't had enough Shakespeare. He's already given us 3 examples of what he's talking about, but he now brings in this idea of a wardrobe. He's saying it's actually, this time between us is like a wardrobe that has a lovely robe in it, a really nice, beautiful robe. Or if you were thinking in a sort of modern setting, or if you got your best dress in there, or your finest suit. And he continues with, to make some special instant special-blest by new unfolding his imprisoned pride. So again, it's the same example as the chest. He's saying, the beautiful robe is in the wardrobe, but only seeing it every now and again on special occasions means that it's special-blessed. So it makes the occasion even more special. I'm trying to think if I have a garment in my house that whenever I open my wardrobe I think, oh, there it is. But I don't think I do. And now it's making me think, bloody hell, I should go out and get one. I should go out and treat myself to a lovely coat, because it sounds great, doesn't it? In this sonnet he's making it sound really nice to open that wardrobe and there it is, your beautiful robe. Or maybe I'll get a robe. So you don't see people getting robes so much nowadays, but maybe this is my moment. I'm going to go out and buy a nice golden robe and put it in my closet. And then I'm only going to open the closet every now and again. Don't open it too much is the trick. And then I'll see it. There it is, the beautiful golden robe. Lovely. And now we're on to the final couplet. Blessed are you whose worthiness gives scope, being had to triumph, being lacked to hope. I really like this final couplet. It's very snappy and sums up the sonnet nicely, I think. Sometimes the final couplet can be a bit sloppy, I've found. But I personally like it when it's got a bit of snap and a bit of pizzazz, like this one. So he's saying directly to the recipient of his poems, to his lover, you are so amazing that the people that are with you feel triumphant when they're with you, and those who aren't wish that they were, They're lacking that triumph. So I think what he's saying in this one, the overall meaning is, when he sees his lover which maybe isn't as often as one would like. But when he does, it's like this rare feast, or this beautiful occasion, or this lovely robe. It's like it makes the moment when they see each other even more special. And he loves it. He loves that moment. But he doesn't talk about this. But I'm thinking, what I think the undercurrent is, but if I saw you all the time, maybe it wouldn't be so special. So actually, there could be some worth in not seeing each other every day. And we've had a sonnet like this in the past, and I can't remember which one, but there was one where he was saying the same thing. Maybe we need to be apart a little bit, and that will make us love each other more. And I think there's a similar theme in this, which is interesting because I've heard, a lot of relationship therapists and stuff talk about this, how keeping the distance between you is very important to maintain a healthy relationship, keeping that mystery. So maybe Shakespeare was onto something here, and I have compared him in previous sonnets to a relationship therapist, and that could have been another path that he went down. If he didn't want to write, say maybe he got bored after he wrote Romeo and Juliet, and he thought, you know what, I think I'm going to help people with their relationships. I think he'd have a pretty good career out of it, and maybe make quite a lot of money. Probably not more than he made as a writer. Although, did he make that much? I don't know. I honestly don't know what he was paid to write plays and stuff, but I imagine it wasn't that bad. Although, can you imagine him finding out now how bloody famous he is? He'd be after the royalties, wouldn't he? Imagine how many times all those plays have been put on. He hasn't seen a dime. Nightmare. Anyway, I think it's about time to put this sonnet to our little story. And if you're joining me for the first time, or you joined for Jacob's appearance in the last couple of weeks, when I'm on my own, to entertain myself, what I like to do is just do a little story that goes alongside the sonnets. So there's been this long continuous story that has run alongside all of the sonnets I've read so far. If you want to go back and listen to it, why not? That'd be nice. If you don't, you'll probably get the idea of what's happened in the past episodes. It's not a complicated story particularly. But let me briefly recap last week's episode for you so you know vaguely what's going on. So Shakespeare is so in love with the poet John Donne, and he's been away from him for quite a long time. And so he's come back to London finally, and John Donne's not interested in Shakespeare anymore. He's sort of fallen out of love with him. So what Shakespeare's done is he's popped him in a chest and locked it up and taken it to his house. So he's basically holding John Donne hostage. And John Donne's obviously not very happy about that. Like most people, he's pretty pissed off about the whole thing. So that's really where we've left off. So Shakespeare has John Donne, against his will, in a chest in his living room. Let's find out what happens next. Shakespeare finishes reading Sonnet 49 to John Donne in the chest. John Donne says, "Shakespeare, what the hell is going on? My head really hurts. You hit me over the head with a saucepan. That's not on." And Shakespeare says, "John, I'm sorry. It's the only way I could get you to listen to me." And John says, "Well, I'm pretty sure that's illegal. You can't do what you're doing. You're holding me against my will. And when I get out of here, I'm going to go to the bloody police." And Shakespeare says, "John, you've got it all wrong. I love you. That's why you're here. That's why you're in this chest. That's why I've locked you up, so that you'll stay with me and you'll realise that you do love me. You do love me." And John Donne starts knocking on the roof of the chest, banging as hard as he can to try and get out. And Shakespeare says, "It's no good. I got this chest from a really good chest shop, and it was really expensive. And the guy said it could actually hold a human in here and they wouldn't be able to get out. He said that to me. So you're not going to get anywhere." Eventually, John Donne stops banging and sits down in the chest. Shakespeare says, "Good. Well done, John. Days and then weeks go by. Shakespeare every day brings John Donne some food and some drink and reads to him various poems and sonnets and even gives him some pen and paper to write his own poems, which is nice of him. But Shakespeare very rarely allows himself to look inside the chest, because he only wants to allow himself sparing glimpses of his beautiful, beautiful lover John Donne. One day, when Shakespeare delivers John Donne his ham and cheese sandwich that he so loves, John Donne says to Shakespeare, "Shakespeare, why don't you ever want to look at me? If you think you love me so much, why don't you look at me? Why don't you open up this trunk and have a good old look at my beautiful face?" And Shakespeare says, "Well, actually, John, I'm so glad you ask. I've got this amazing theory about this." And John Donne says, "Oh, really? Well, why don't you tell me the theory then?" And Shakespeare says, "Well, I'd rather write it, actually, as a sonnet. I think that will be more apt, more beautiful." And John Donne says, "Oh, I've heard so much of your poetry and sonnets and plays over the last month. Please, dear God, don't write another sonnet. Just tell me the theory. I don't need to hear another sonnet." And Shakespeare says, "Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. You said you want the sonnet. You want me to write another sonnet." And John Donne shouts, "No, I don't. I said I don't want you to write another sonnet." And Shakespeare said, "Oh, I'm glad you're enjoying my writing. That's lovely. I'll go up now and write the sonnet for you. It explains everything." So Shakespeare, without any hesitation, goes up to his little writing room and pens Sonnet 52. He runs down the stairs after he's written it. It only took him a couple of minutes, really. And like a giddy schoolboy, he knocked on John Donne's chest. John Donne says, "Hello?" And Shakespeare says, "I've written it. Sonnet 52. It's all about why I don't look at you loads in the chest." And John Donne says, "Well, I don't really want to hear it." And Shakespeare says, "Well, if you don't hear it, you won't get fed." John Donne pauses for a moment and then says, "Fine, read it to me for God's sake." And Shakespeare takes Sonnet 52 out of his back pocket and reads, Sonnet 52. "I'm like a really rich man who has the key to some locked up treasure. But I won't look at my treasure every hour, because it will make the treasure less pleasurable. That's why holiday feasts are so rare, because there aren't many of them in the year, like precious jewels sparsely placed. The time when we are apart is like that treasure chest, or like a wardrobe that hides a really lovely robe. Knowing the robe is there in the wardrobe, but only seeing it rarely, makes the occasion even more special. Oh, you're so amazing that those who possess you feel triumphant, and those who are not with you hope to be." Wow, there it is, Sonnet 52. We've done it. Actually, quite amazing how well Sonnet 52 fits into our story, I have to say. I mean, all of the stuff about being in a treasure chest, it's almost as if I'd read in advance, but I actually genuinely hadn't. Quite incredible. And what I'm saying is, I think my mind is very similar to Shakespeare's in many ways. You can call me, if you want, a modern day Shakespeare. And I hope that you do call me that, and you spread the word that I am the modern day Shakespeare. Please spread it far and wide. It's very important we get the message out. Anyway, until next week, bye.